Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Derrich Phillips of Mentor Select. Derrich, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hey, pleasure to be here, Gresham. Appreciate you having me.
Definitely super excited to have you on, and you're doing so many phenomenal things. And before we jumped into the interview, I want to read a little bit more about Derrich so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Derrich is a best-selling author, combat veteran, husband, and proud father on a mission to help youth achieve their dreams and lead fulfilling lives. He's dedicated to helping youth break the cycle of generational poverty and empowering people of all backgrounds to improve their lives and escape the poverty mindset. When not writing, Derrich enjoys traveling, competing in Ironman races, volunteering, and spending time with his loving family and dog in Dallas, Texas. Derrich, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it then. So to kind of kick everything off, I wanted to just rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started and take us through your CEO story.
Oh, great. So pretty much for me, I had always been involved in mentoring youth. That's something I've always been passionate about. But I really started looking at it in terms of making a living from doing it was in 2018. I unexpectedly got laid off from my job.
Wow.
I was working in IT security, just got comfortable. Oh yeah, I'm never gonna get laid off. That didn't even cross my mind. And once I got laid off, I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I really don't want to be in this position again where I'm just 100% dependent on a job to provide for me. And at that time, I was married already, and my wife and I we were going through IVF, so getting ready to start a family. So things are real. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, I don't want to put my family through this, and
Right.
just having that single point of failure. So since then, I started looking at becoming an entrepreneur and seeing how I can serve people and have control over that, and how I'm serving people and what value I'm bringing through as being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate you for sharing that. I have been laid off as well, and I actually got a job like not too long after I got laid off, and I was gonna get laid off again. So that is definitely not a great experience or something you want to kind of go through. But I think it starts to switch, your mindset and how you look at things and different steps sometimes you want to take in your life. And you use the phrase, I wanted to hear a little bit more about it. You said single point of failure. Could you take
Mhm.
us through a little bit more on what that means?
Yeah, so single point of failure, I probably first really learned about that concept when I was serving in the Army and military. We always had plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because they say what can go wrong will go wrong.
Right, right.
As I mentioned, I was getting comfortable and I had that single point of failure, which meant that I was dependent on my job to pay my mortgage, all of my bills, provide for my family to live. And once that job was taken away from me, I had no say so over that. My name ended up on the list, and hey, we don't need your services anymore. Now what? So at the time, I didn't have a plan B or C. Unfortunately, I was blessed. I know I had a skill set that I could monetize, but it certainly helps not to just be focused, putting all your eggs in one basket. Essentially, you're really prepared for the unexpected, and when it comes to income and financial security, make sure that you have multiple streams of income.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. I appreciate you for your service and all the work that you did there, but I appreciate you for
But
drilling down more on that because I imagine that phrase, which I was hoping that's what it was about. I haven't served in the military, but it made sense in relation to what you were talking about and how so many times we don't realize that we are creating and have that single point of failure where if something does go wrong, then we don't have a plan A, plan B, or anything along the lines. And it sounds like that's what you do to kind of help, I guess, educate and empower people on maybe creating more ways to kind of generate revenue and opportunities.
yeah, absolutely. When I'm mentoring youth, I'm certainly helping them first identify what their special gifts are. I feel everyone has gifts and talents, helping them to really develop those, and then also think outside the box and not be limited to, hey, I'm just going to play basketball, or hey, I'm just going to be a engineer or doctor, or just whatever they were told they're supposed to be or they desire at that time, realizing, hey, it's going to evolve, think your desires are going to change, but you want to always be trying to plan 2, 3 steps ahead and keeping your options open and making yourself as marketable as you can be and learning all you can so that you are prepared for any shifts in the economy or a global pandemic happens, whatever the case may be. And you just have that mindset where, hey, I'm prepared for whatever happens. I can handle it. I have the resilience, the mental toughness. I'm ready.
Yeah, and that's definitely necessary, as you said. We're going through one of those life altering and world altering times. Right now, and just trying to
Absolutely.
figure out like what to do, what not to do, and it sounds like it sounds like a lot of the work that you do, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, is also like empowering people to recognize those things, but also sounds like develop those things so that they are able to kind of lean on their skills and pivot and change whenever that time might be needed.
Certainly. And it started off for me with Mentor Select and really focusing with youth. And I just recently today I actually just launched my YouTube channel, Healthier and
Nice.
Wealthier. And that's for people of all ages, where they not only focus on living a healthier lifestyle, whether it's fitness, nutrition, just being healthier overall, but also a way they can be wealthier, saving money, investing money, making money. And going back to those streams of income we were just talking about, they're prepared and they can pivot just whenever they need to. So yeah, my channel focuses on providing them with those tips to live healthier and wealthier.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we'll definitely have that information in the show notes so that everybody can follow up and subscribe and check out all that value that you're providing. And so I know you have like a podcast and loads of kind of other things you're doing as far as speaking. Could you take us through a little bit more of the ways that you help kind of support clients through your books and all the awesome content that you're creating?
Sure. So first start off with the first thing I did once I got laid off and had a little extra time and then go right back to the workforce. I was like, okay, I want to write a book. And I started time blocking every morning, time blocking an hour or two working on my book. And that was Poverty Powerball was my first book. I could turn adversity into your winning ticket. And essentially, it was a story of my childhood growing up in extreme poverty in Gary, Indiana, one of the most dangerous cities, especially in the 90s in the world. But I wanted to identify how I was able to overcome that adversity and how I felt it made me stronger as a man, as a person, and prepared me to excel in my later years as an adult. I wanted to help kids, especially going from that environment, to see it's well, my grandma used to always say, a blessing in disguise. Like no matter what you're going through, that adversity, those hardships, it's building the toughness. You definitely will be a lot stronger as a result if you get through it. So that led into the first book. Then my wife and I ended up publishing two children's books. Actually, it was a series, Father Figures, just because I just know how important it is for kids growing up without fathers to at least have father figures in their life to provide that positive male role model for them to see just what it is. So we did that, and then like I said, the podcast. I just start interviewing people who like entrepreneurs, people that's just successful, and having them come on and share tips on how other people can model that success. That's definitely what I attribute to my success is just having those mentors and modeling what other successful people do. You don't have to recreate the wheel. So
Mhm.
that's one thing that the podcast focuses a lot on. And yeah, so it's just trying to get the message out there, whether it's through the books, the podcast, and on YouTube. And also, I have a course as well. So yeah, just trying to help people out however I can.
Yeah, I appreciate all the different ways, and you have loads of resources, and I know you do speak in so many different ways as well too. That people can kind of get the message, get the word, so to speak, so that they can be able to implement that into their lives. And what was kind of running through my brain when you were talking about all the different ways by which people can, understand and learn about that is like your environment, because I think so many times what you see is sometimes all that is reality, or it feels
Yeah,
that way. So I
absolutely.
love, the message and everything that you're doing, because it to me it incorporates other opportunities that sometimes, especially youth that don't grow up in the best neighborhoods, can understand that they can do something else other than what's been told that they can do, and this is how you do it as well too. And I think so many times when you hear somebody's story, you hear what it is that they've done and how they've been able to happen. That's what makes it real. So I appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah, it's so important. That's something I didn't realize until I left for the army. I
Mhm.
went to the army. My first duty station was Germany, and I remember after being in Germany for a couple months and then coming back home to Gary for vacation and just looking around, like seeing all these abandoned buildings and just all this
Mhm.
despair, this poverty. I'm like, wow, that's not how everyone lives. Everyone doesn't live like that. But I
Right.
didn't know that until I left. I didn't
Right.
realize that there was more until I left. So sometimes you just have to get out that environment. And for kids growing up in it, I understand they may not have that option, but any opportunity they have, whether it's playing sports, whether it's listening to IMCEO, or just there's
Mhm.
so many different opportunities to at least get their mind out of that negative environment. So that's key.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was going to ask you for what I call your secret sauce, and this could be for yourself or your business or a combination of both. But do you feel it's that ability to turn and see poverty into a potential opportunity? That ability for you to kind of, I guess, flip that switch, so to speak. Do you feel like that's something that makes you unique and successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's my biggest competitive advantage. And I think for me, when I was 11 years old, my mom and I were homeless for a time period, about 3 months.
Hmm.
And at that point, it was essentially rock bottom, didn't have a roof over our head. And even throughout that, my mom used to always ask me, like, hey, what kind of house you gonna have when you grow up? What kind of car you gonna have? And just starting to think about that took me out of that mindset of being depressed and feeling helpless to like, hey, I'm looking towards a future now. And then going through something like that prepared me like, all right, I've been homeless before.
Right.
That's been hit the worst of the worst, so anything else
Right.
is going to be easy. So certainly, I would say that's my competitive advantage throughout life, where it's nothing where I feel like, okay, I can't overcome this, or this is going to break me. No, I can always look at it and say, okay, this is an opportunity. This is building me stronger. This is something that hey, this is a blessing in disguise. So I know a lot of people don't have that, they can't look at things that way, but it really is a mindset where you're reframing anything that you would view as negative, you reframe it to something positive. And we see it as, hey, this is an opportunity. This is forcing me to step outside my comfort zone, forcing me to do something I normally wouldn't do. Now it's like, okay, it has a positive spin on it. But like with COVID-19, being at home and on lockdown, okay, now this opportunity for me to spend more time with my family. This opportunity for me to rethink my business structure. This all the different things you look at it in a positive way, and that just changes everything and it energizes you. Versus, oh poor me, why this happened to me? That doesn't that zaps your energy and spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And doesn't help you to kind of get everywhere. And I appreciate you for sharing that. And of course, living that, because I think just as you said, if you're able to kind of look at things in a different way, it helps you out, during that time. And I appreciate your mom for being able to do that and understand the
Yeah,
power of that, the power of your mind and thinking about like where you can be so you don't get as caught up in sometimes the struggles, the frustrations, whatever might be happening at that time. You can see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is another opportunity, and I think
right.
that's something that we all need to realize, that sometimes the challenges, the things we go through aren't, for you to feel like you don't have any power, but it's to make you stronger, to give you that resilience, all those things that you mentioned a lot earlier.
Yeah, it's essential. Certainly, and that led me into as an adult, like where I started doing extreme sports. So I kicked
Mhm.
it off with a marathon, then an ultra marathon, and just recently an Ironman. And
Nice.
I just enjoy those types of just pushing myself outside my comfort zone, doing things that people think is crazy or just impossible. But I just had that mindset: if someone else can do it, I can do it. I may not be doing an Olympic time, but if I just want out there to finish, out there to prove to myself that hey, I can go the distance, whether it's mentally or physically.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, prove to yourself, because I think so many times when you are able to kind of tap into that and you start to challenge yourself and to be better than yourself, then you can start
Right.
to create that winning, I guess formula, so to speak, than trying to do what somebody else is doing or look like somebody or whatever that might be. That's when we start to kind of lose ourself and lose our gifts that we can kind of lean into.
Yep, you're so right, and that's where I think a lot of people get discouraged, especially in the age of social media, where they're comparing themselves to other people. And I recently heard a quote where they say you essentially you're comparing your start line to someone else's finish line,
Mm.
and we all want that shortcut. We all want the instant success, but it's just not realistic. So if you're comparing, seeing somebody else like, oh man, they got all this, and I don't have that. You haven't put in the work. You haven't put in the time. Hey, you can model what they did and get there, but it's a process. So don't try to. I always say embrace the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to switch gears a little bit and ask you for what I call a CEO hack, which can be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have. But was it just what you mentioned? Is it that ability to embrace the process and to kind of, I guess, center oneself into like, these are the things that I need to do? Do you feel like that is something that, makes you more effective and efficient?
Yeah, it is. And for me, I love learning and I love researching, especially researching other successful people. So that's something I do a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't ever want to recreate the wheel. I just want to
Mhm.
follow that formula, but then of course add my own uniqueness to it. But yeah, I do a lot of research and I'm always looking at, okay, if I'm struggling with some, okay, how does someone else get past this? And what is there are shortcuts? So say shortcut, not just trying to avoid doing something, but how can I do something better? How can I optimize? I'm always looking for that ways to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a phrase, success leaves clues. And, through
Absolutely.
podcasts, books, listening to people, biographies, all those things leave those clues to success, as you said so well, not from avoiding, the work or taking a shortcut in order to like cheat the process,
Right,
but to
right.
learn how you can be better and learn from those. And I think that having that humility and willing to be able to roll up your sleeves is absolutely a huge thing to set you up for success.
Absolutely. And I know from a young age, my uncle used to always tell me, like, learn from others' mistakes. So
Hmm.
that's another thing that helps you optimize and gives you technically a shortcut. Where if someone's outlining a mistake they made, you can avoid that mistake, and
Right.
you can do it a better way. So yeah, just
Absolutely.
so many sources out there. Like there's no excuses
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah, you have everything at our fingertips, right?
Indeed.
So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So that could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client or somebody you're talking to, or it might be something if you were to hop into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
I love that question. And for me, so I've been as far as pursuing on this entrepreneurship journey for about 2 years now. And if I can rewind back 2 years and tell my that new entrepreneur or something, I would say something I recently learned is about the importance of not only like trying to deliver what you have a vision for, but also just keeping in mind like you have to put it in a format that's consumable for whoever you're delivering it to. So I
Mm,
think as entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of we have this grand vision and these ideas like, okay, I'm gonna deliver this product or service and people are gonna love it. But you're not really thinking about, okay, looking at it from their perspective, your customer's perspective, the end user's perspective, and saying, okay, how do I make sure that I put it in the format that they're gonna love? So for me, with my educational podcast and things like that, I was just looking at it from the education side. Like, hey, this is knowledge. This is priceless to my listeners. But also, I just realized like now, okay, I need to also make it entertaining as well. So they say edutainment. So that's something that it took me a while to get to that point, and things are starting to click more now that I'll put those two and two together.
yeah, that makes so much sense. I absolutely appreciate that nugget and to be able to understand so many times we fall in love with what we create and what we do.
Yeah,
But it's so important to kind of remind ourselves like why we're doing what we're doing. Sometimes, a lot of times, we're
absolutely.
creating something in order to solve a problem or to help out people. So we also have to keep in mind that, yes, we have this idea, but how do we kind of translate that into something that is consumable, as you said, so that our target audience, the people we want to connect with, can not just hear it, but potentially even use it, implement it, execute on it. And that's when you really reach another level. So it's great to hear you've been able to kind of experience that.
Yep, yep, absolutely. A breakthrough moment.
Yeah. Nice. And so I wanted to ask you now my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Derek, what does being a CEO mean to you?
So to me, being a CEO is being a leader, someone who has a high level of integrity, compassion, and just a desire to serve others. It's not necessarily somebody that's just a boss that barks out orders and just gets to sit back and relax and make money. No, I have a tattoo on me, Bible verse, to whom much is given, much is expected. So as
Mm.
a CEO, certainly you're given a lot because you're able to lead people, but it's a lot expected of you. And I'm a big believer in leading from the front. So you certainly have to just have that high level of integrity, make sure you're doing it for the right reason, and you just have that servant leader mindset.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge, and I love that verse, and just too, it reminds me of like the parable of the quotes, because parable of the talents, because so many
Mhm.
times you're giving certain gifts in order for you to kind of help support people, for you to be of service,
Right.
to the world and to the people within the world. And I think when we start to understand that and step into that and have our actions in alignment with that, that's again when you start to, of course, make a huge impact and start to really see the fruits of our labor, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Darius, truly appreciate that definition. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get a hold of you, find out about the books, podcasts, YouTube, and all the awesome things you're working on.
Again, I appreciate you having me on I Am CEO. I love what you're doing, and yeah, this is so important. So big ups to you. Keep doing what you're doing. As far as my products, my books, they're on Amazon. Again, it's Poverty Powerball. I have a Father Figures children's book series. and then also the shortest distance, and that one's all about goal setting. And make sure to subscribe, check out my channel, Healthier and Wealthy on YouTube. That's something I'm really excited about, and making sure that I'm adding that entertainment side to the education. Again, appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. Definitely appreciate you too. We will have the links and information in the show notes. And I appreciate you for creating that edutainment for all of us to not just, get the knowledge, but also get the enjoyment in terms of listening and taking in that content. So thank you for, being the change and reminding us of the change that we want to see in the world and all the inspirational stuff that you're doing. So I truly appreciate you, Derrich. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
My pleasure. You too.